Hello, I'm Stuart. I work for Lancashire Energy Efficiency Advice Centre. We're part of a network of advice centres across the country run by the Energy Saving Trust. And today we're going to look round a fairly typical house and see what sort of things you can do to improve your energy efficiency and save the environment. If your house is brick, it may well be that you can fit cavity wall insulation. Any houses built after 1936 automatically had a cavity wall. Cavity wall insulation is just loft insulation with a silicone treatment to make it waterproof, so that it's perfectly safe to put in any house. I think nowadays everybody accepts that loft insulation is one of the most energy efficient improvements you can actually make. But how thick is yours? If it's only this thick, 50 or 75 millimetres, then you really need to be thinking about getting it upgraded. A new build house will be anything up to 300 millimetres thick or 12 inches. Two of the most energy efficient savings you can make are insulation, and the second most important is the type of heating system and how efficient it is. Here we have a relatively modern boiler. If your boiler is older than 10 years old and you're having trouble with it breaking down, then do replace it. An old boiler may well be wasting 40 or 50% of the fuel it burns, whereas a modern day boiler wastes only 5 or 10%. Here is an example of a fairly modern heating controller. It tells the boiler when to switch on and off. The most important thing is making sure you're not heating your house unnecessarily. So make sure it only comes on for a couple of hours before you come in at night during the winter, and during the summer months just reduce the time that you allow for the house to warm up. And if at all, try and reduce the length of time that you actually have your heating system switched on. Here we have a fairly simple room thermostat. This is the type of control that controls the heating for the whole of the house, and it sets the temperature and your comfort. This temperature is set to 22 degrees. Ideal temperature is 21. If we turn it down by 1 degree C, then you can save up to 10% of your total fuel bill just by turning your thermostat down. Some houses aren't controlled by a room thermostat. They're controlled by an individual control on each radiator called a thermostatic radiator valve. Again, you can turn the temperature down, or what about turning the temperature off in those rooms that you use very little? A lot of houses have their hot water heated instantaneously, but some still have older type water storage systems. If you do have one of those, I know it's very nice to warm your clothes on, but it's very inefficient doing that. You need to have at least 100 millimetres or 4 inches of insulation round your cylinder to keep the heat in all the time. And use the main heating system to heat that cylinder. Don't use electric immersion heaters. The cost of using an electric immersion heater is probably twice that of using the gas from the boiler. The humble kitchen kettle uses an awful lot of electricity, and most people tend to just fill it up willy-nilly and switch it on. Very important, only fill the amount of water you actually need for your use at that time. If everybody in the country did that, we'd actually save enough energy to power every single street light across the whole of the country. And the bane of modern life, chargers. Everybody tends to plug them in and leave them plugged in when the appliance isn't attached. All the time, mobile phones are not plugged into the charger, it's still using electricity and wasting it. This is fairly typical of a modern house with an awful lot of appliances. Televisions, radios, record players, DVD players, etc. All appliances nowadays tend to have two modes. You can either switch them off fully, or using the remote people tend to switch them on to standby, and that is still very wasteful of energy. Please get up, switch the appliances off at the source, then they're not using any energy at all. Technology, another very big energy user these days. An awful lot of people come in, switch the computers on, use them for a while and walk away from them. Please, if you're not using the technology, switch it off. There are devices you can get nowadays that you can plug your computer and all your printers into, and if the system has been inactive for more than a given period of time, it will power everything down safely for you. Lighting, another big energy user in a house. Initially, I would obviously give advice about turning lights off when you're not in a room. But the other important thing is, whilst you are in the room, try and use a low energy light bulb. I know in some fittings nowadays they're not particularly attractive, but in future years this will be the only type of bulb you'll be able to get hold of. So please, do take a step and try them now. For those of you selling your house over the last few months, you'll probably come across something called the Home Buyers Pack, which includes within it an energy performance certificate, and it looks a little something like this. You've probably seen them before on household appliances, the chart indicating which are the very bad performers and which are the very good. And on the energy performance certificate it will show how your house performs now and how it could perform after the improvements are being carried out. The importance of this is, to any buyer, they will want to know what the running costs are for the house, and if they can afford to heat the home, and finally how energy efficient it is. Thank you for watching us, and I hope you found it interesting. If you do want more details, you can contact us on 0800 512 012. Thank you, and do save some energy.